Well, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Came a long way.
Hey, about 1,200 miles.
Nice even number.
Graduation. Oh, sorry. See that, Katie?
My name is Carl Meyer. We hail from Albany, New York. This is a 54 MGTF that I bought back in 1986. Restored it. The paint is birch gray with a red interior and black top, so it's got a very nice contrast. We took it to the first MG meet and it won first timers. It also won best TF at that show. Beyond that, we then drove it on the lap of New England and had a good time. The next meet we took it to, the car won Premier, which is the best of the best. Following that, we took it on the Circuit of Britain, and this was one of 89 cars shipped to England, and we drove from one end of England to another, to John O'Groats in Scotland. While we were in England, we also went to a car show at Bewley, and the American cars were all parked together. This was one of the 89 cars, and the Brits voted for their favorite car, and this car won that event. So it's given us great pleasure. We use it now as a driver, mainly for local events. That sort of sums it up. It gives you a little bit of history of the car. Yeah, the New England MGT Register, arranged the program. We shipped 89 cars, met them in England, and then drove from one end of England to the other.
And what is the lap of New England? You mentioned the lap of
Right, we also drove that on that. That was a circuit we went through Vermont, New Hampshire, down the Maine coast, through Connecticut and back. I think we started here in Concord. That was done in 1989.
Your first MG?
No, this was probably about the third one. I had restored a TD piecemeal. This was my first real attempt at doing a full restoration on a car. This car was only produced for 2 years. It was sort of a facelift of the TD so that they could still have some sales. They were ready to introduce the MGA, which was a more streamlined car, but the MG company was not given authorization to do that, so they facelifted a TD, and this was the result. Some people consider this to be the prettiest MGT series car that there is.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a 1929 M-type MG. They made 479 M-types. in England in 1929. A total of 3,200 M-types were made from 29 to 32. This car has a special body. Originally would have had a boat tail body, and the conversion was done sometimes after the Second World War. This tiny little car weighs only about 950 pounds, but and the engine's 850 cc's. But back in 1930, this car set a record for going over 100 miles an hour. Captain George Easton set the world record with such a small car. I've had it since 2007, and I bought it in 9 boxes and a big pile of parts. So was able to spend 5 years identifying the parts, putting things together, and this is the 4th time the car has been out for show. So it's wonderfully fun to drive, and I've made sure that I've kept the body and everything in the condition that it was in when the conversion was done after the war. So instead of shining it up, this is pretty much what you see is how the car would have been campaigned back in the day.
Why the MGM?
And the M-type, it's curious. If you go back in history of MG, it would take hours to explain the numbers, because this was the first production type MG, and they started with M. And then came out with a C type and a D type. So the alphabet doesn't make sense when you take a look at things. But so yeah, why the M? I think it was known as designation type 833, and I think it's because they had to come up with a number. And Cecil Kimber, who was in charge of MG at the time, took the 833 train into Oxford. So I think that's where they came up with 833. Yes, original license plate. That license plate was issued in Surrey County, England, on the 14th of August in 1929. Have the logbooks and stuff that have the original registration and bill of sale. So yes, that's original license plate.
So why did you pick the MG M-Class?
Oh my gosh. Well, I started messing with MGs, 25, 30, a bunch of years ago. And we've got about 20 of them, and I love the pre-war cars, and this happens to be one of the oldest. Actually, this was 224th off the assembly line, so it's probably one of the oldest M-type MGs in the country. And it's just neat. The pre-war stuff has a charm all its own. It can be frustrating because you have to make parts. It's hard to find them in a catalog, but they're just, the history of the car is so rich. And this is when racing started with MG back in the day. And the 30s were kind of the heyday of racing. The MG car company was behind the racing. And then, of course, the later cars like the TDs, TCs and TDs really started the racing bug in the U.S. So MG is the obvious choice for any motorhead that wants to get into racing. That's the car that basically started it here in the States. It's a one-off body, and it's just, how can you take this and destroy that vision? So it has all the scratches and dings and stuff like that from the time, which I think is beautiful. I mean, make this work.
People look at it and don't think it'll start, and he proves it loudly.
It's got a V8, right? Little rock start. Okay.
Battery pack.
See, originally you'd hit a push button, or you either use a crank.
Mm-hmm.
For like a lot of race cars, you use auxiliary power.
Mm-hmm.
Let the little dogs get by here. Okay, box away.
Wow. Wow. Will it fit? Yes, it'll fit. They'll make it.